Hello everyone and welcome to my organic garden here in Central Texas. I'm going to take you on a tour to see what is growing at the very end of December 2024. I filmed this video on my phone and there was a lot of audio issues, so I'm having to do a voiceover on top of the video clips. I hope y'all don't mind that too much. Alright, let's go check out the garden. Starting at this large bed, I have a few different things. These first plants are my fennel. My sister wanted me to grow some for her rabbit, and so she brought back some seeds with her when she came home several months ago after living in Italy for a few years. This was my first time growing fennel, and I didn't get my seeds started early enough, so I ended up having to buy some organic transplants from a local nursery. Originally, I bought 10, but a squirrel dug one up and killed it. In its place, I tried to plant a couple pak choi plants I started from seed in the garage, but they were too small and got shaded out by the larger plants around them and also got pretty eaten up by slugs. You can see here in these photos the first fennel I harvested right after I finished filming this video, and it is just absolutely massive. It's crazy. Continuing on, next to the fennel, I have two types of kale. The first few plants are a premier variety of kale, so they have a flatter looking leaf. Then next to them, I have about 6 or so curly kale plants. The curly kale especially has been growing really well, and I've already harvested the bottom leaves off of these plants several times and just continue to let them to grow and produce. Moving over to my small bed that's a bit off to the side, I have calendula growing. This was all grown using seeds saved from my previous plants. I started them in the garage this fall and then transplanted them out here. I've started harvesting a few flowers already. I use calendula for a lot of things, but one of the main ones is to infuse it in oil to make skin salve. In the big pot next to the bed, I have an extra broccolini plant that didn't fit into my raised bed where I put the others. The same thing happened when I transplanted the calendula, so I added the extras to this grow bag I had previously grown squash in this summer. Now we'll look at my small in-ground garden. Originally, this was the only garden space I had long before I ever had any raised beds. I used to try to grow veggies in here, but the native soil is very heavy clay, so even after several years of amending with compost, the plants never did very well. So last year, in 2023, I turned it into a perennial pollinator flower garden. I've got some Texas natives as well as some others that do well in the full sun. This year it has stayed warm much longer than usual, so all the plants are flowering and the bees and butterflies are loving them. Our average last frost date is around November 15th, so by the end of November, we would usually have had at least 1 or 2 nights that got down to the freezing temps, but this year we still haven't as of December 31st. I don't remember the names of everything I have growing here, but I know I have a few types of salvia, a hot lip sage, a pink rock rose, some lantanas, and a few rosemary plants. Some of them are planted too close together, so it's a pretty wild space. It also looks like a couple plants might have died over the summer, but overall it's doing really well. We've been getting some rain lately, so the weeds are growing like crazy too, both in the garden and a ton in the paths. In the back of this garden area, I have my 2-bin compost system I built. I like to make as much of my own compost as I can. A neighbor gave me a bunch of pumpkins after Thanksgiving that I chopped up and added to my compost pile, so as you can see that now after the recent rains, there are a bunch of the seeds that have sprouted and started growing. For now, I'm going to just let them grow and we'll rake them back into the pile to just add more matter to the compost. Now, let's head back to the first big raised bed we looked at. So on the end here, I have a nasturtium growing next to the kale. I have these 2 arched trellises, and on the inside of this first one here, I have a couple pak choi plants. Next to those, I have some spinach I started from seed. They aren't really growing much because they get a lot of shade from the kale. So those are the pak choi there, and then the ones with the red tags right there are the spinach. On the inside of the other trellis, I have a succession planting of peas. These are just some kind of sugar snap pea. The first pea seeds I planted are on the other side of the trellis in the second bed, which you can see over here. You can see this first set is much farther along and growing and is now flowering and even has some small pea pods. It's really exciting to see these growing. It's just so much fun to see your seeds grow and produce. They should be ready to harvest very soon. On the end of this bed is another nasturtium that has pretty variegated leaves and is more of a trailing vining type. Then the half of the bed on this side closest to us has some broccolini plants. I've already harvested the main head from several of them that were ready and have left the smaller side shoots to keep growing and get a little bigger. Some of them are about ready to harvest the side shoots from now too. And there's a couple that are a little bit slower along and still have the main heads that I need to harvest at some point. The back half of this bed has 6 cauliflower plants. One of them here got decimated by snails when it was still little, so although it's growing back, it's now much smaller than the rest of them. These were all planted a little late, so the heads look like they're starting to grow because you can see how the center leaves are curling together, but you can't really see the actual cauliflower heads yet. Now onto this next long skinny bed by the fence. This is where I usually grow tomatoes during the spring and summer, but right now I have a variety of lettuces. I planted each little section with a different type, and you can see some of the older seeds either didn't germinate at all or had very sporadic germination. I am also filming this right after I watered everything, which is why the lettuce leaves are kind of falling over and almost look wilted. They just got pushed down by some of the water, but they'll bounce back soon. Here I was just explaining that those at the end are two of the same variety, but from two different seed packets. So one of them did fine and the other was older and didn't. And then these here were a mix at the end, so they didn't do very well because the seed was just too old. It was from a free seed packet that came with an order a few years ago, and I never planted and figured I might as well try them now, but they were too old. This next small bed has the right side about 1/3 growing arugula, and the left about 2/3 of the bed is planted with radishes. You can see them here coming out of the soil. They look really cool. I've harvested 3 already, but they were pretty small, so I'm going to let them size up a little bit more before harvesting again. This next bed really hasn't done very well at all. These are some different types of carrots. You can see the germination is very sporadic all the way around, really. And again, they're kind of laying down after being watered. I have a lot of issues with squirrels digging in here and messing things up. I also think part of the issue is the seeds were just a couple years old, and unlike, say, tomatoes or peppers, carrot seeds just don't last as long, so the germination rates were much lower in general. And I was pointing out at the end there that those seeds were some that I got in a swap, so I'm really not sure how old they were to begin with. In these 4 grow bags here at the end, I have some garlic growing. I planted these near the end of October, like on the 29th, and I have 5 cloves in each bag. So in total, I should get 20 heads of garlic from these. Now, turning back around over here, I have my 3 blackberry plants in this cage trellis system I built. I'm still pretty new to growing berries, and this spring in 2024 was the first time they ever produced. I know I need to prune them because the canes are getting really long, but that's something I need to do some more research on first. I froze the majority of the blackberries I grew this year and then was able to use them to make a blackberry cobbler for my grandmother's 96th birthday in December, and it was really good. Over here next to the berries, I have a couple pots that again just have extra broccolini and cauliflower plants. I also want to show y'all my citrus trees. This first one is a Meyer lemon, and when I showed it in my last video, it still had the lemons growing and ripening on it. I was able to harvest 14 lemons from it on December 14th this year. My youngest of the 3 citruses is this Valencia orange. It hasn't produced yet and needs to be pruned because it's growing a bit unevenly. Lastly is my Poncan mandarin tree. The first year this tree produced was in 2022, and I was able to harvest 4 mandarins in early January 2023. Then it didn't produce in 2023, but now in 2024, it has 1 mandarin growing. It's starting to ripen now, so I should be able to harvest sometime in January. My garden has done really well this year. I've gotten some great harvests and have been able to preserve some of it too. I'm excited and looking forward to the 2025 garden season. I should be ready to start my first rounds of seeds inside under grow lights around January 4th. Before I go, I want to say thank you so much to all my viewers and subscribers, both new and old. Y'all are so great, and it really means the world to me that you watch and enjoy my videos. I know I am not always super consistent with posting due to dealing with my chronic health issues, and I really appreciate the understanding y'all have shown and that you have stuck with me through it all. I hope you will continue to stick with me as we go into 2025. If you have any video ideas or things you'd like to see from me in the new year, let me know and I'll do my best to make those happen. If you aren't already subscribed, please do so. Thank you so much and Happy New Year.